Alireza Firouzja is one of the best at handling complex positions. In this game, he shows the power of space advantage. He keeps his opponent's position cramped, he limits his opponent's options and steadily takes over the control of the board. A great example of how space can be turned into the lasting control. So, in this game, Firouzja has white pieces and he's playing against FIDE master Jalaluddin Ilkhomi. So, Firouzja starts with the move e4. Jalaluddin goes for the move e6, the French defense, d4, d5, knight c3 gets played, bishop b4, all theory. Then Firouzja plays the move e5, gaining the space on the king side. Jalaluddin challenges the center with c5. Firouzja plays a3 in this position. Bishop takes b3 gets played. B takes c3 gets played. And then queen f5. Then he defends the pawn. So this is all theory. Then in this position, queen a4 gets played. So basically, Jalaluddin is increasing the pressure on the queen side because he knows that Firouzja has got space advantage on the king side. So he will start putting pressure there. So he's anticipating it. Then he's like, I'm ready to create activity on the queen side. Now, Firouzja goes for the move queen g4. He's like, I'm starting the activity of mine on the king side from this moment itself. And then g6 gets played by Jalaluddin. Of course, he cannot give up that g7 pawn. Now in this position, Firouzja plays the move knight f3. He develops the knight. By the way, he is not worried about this pawn. He's like, all right, you want to take this pawn, you can take it. Even I can take this pawn. Of course, the pawn structure is not that great, but that's fine. Let's say if knight d7 is played, then there can be ideas of bishop b5. Maybe in some cases, c6. Or in certain cases, knight d4. And there is clear control that white will have. And if queen b2 or something, then white would not mind playing bishop takes d7 because the dark squares of black would be quite weak. So in this position, Jalaluddin decides against capturing that pawn and instead develops the knight. So Firouzja is like, all right, I'll just play queen f4. You want to take my pawn? You can take it at any moment. But because I have the space advantage on the king side and because the dark squares are weak and I have the dark square bishop and you don't have the dark square bishop, I will start focusing on that. So Jalaluddin closes the center and gains the space on the queen side. Firouzja is not worried. He goes for the move knight g5. The relentless pressure on the king side continues. Then in this position, Jalaluddin develops the knight and then he goes for the move knight h6. So of course he defends this. Then there is knight f5 as well at some point if required. Now Firouzja in this position plays the move h4. So basically he knows that if he keeps up the pressure on the king side, then soon he will be able to overwhelm Jalaluddin on the king side. So h4 is the move. And then in this position, Jalaluddin decides to take the pawn. So it's not just to win the pawn. He's like, I want to keep the connection of my queen on the king side. So then Firouzja is not worried about it. He goes for the move h5. So he wants to play h6 g6. He wants to open this file as well. There's some pressure over here. There's some pressure over here. And with the pressure on that file as well, it will be too much for Jalaluddin to handle that. Now queen f5 gets played. Then h takes g6 gets played. Wait a minute. Is Firouzja not worried about exchanging the queens because then his pressure on the king side would reduce? No, he's not worried because he knows that he's going to win the material. Because if queen takes f4 and bishop takes f4, if h takes d6, then he has a very calm move. Knight f3. And this knight can't be saved. And this is just loss for black. So he's not worried about exchange of queens because he knows that he would actually win the piece. Now, before we see the later part of the game, so if you want to improve your chess beyond just playing games and doing puzzles, then you can use chessneurons.com as well. With daily puzzles, videos, and soon to be coming courses, all created by me. It helps you in actually understanding the strategic ideas in a more in-depth manner. And you will gain the knowledge in such a way that you will be able to apply those ideas in your own games and you'll be able to plan the things in a much streamlined manner. So please check chessneurons.com and make use of the free trial of 7 days today. So let's get back to the game. So we saw how exchange of queens is not good. Firouzja would win the piece. So Jalaluddin in this position plays the move queen takes c6. Now Firouzja is not worried. He's like, yes, I've weakened the king side. I've got the semi-open file as well, but I need more pieces. So these are not enough. So he develops the bishop in this position. So what's the plan? The plan is that he wants to play bishop h5 at some point and increase the pressure. Then bishop d7 gets played. Now in this position, Firouzja plays the move queen h2. He brings the queen back. So what is his plan? And why is he doing this? So his plan is to remove the knight. And once the knight gets removed, then he can play the move bishop h5. Then he can target this f7 pawn. So that's why he played the move queen h2 to remove that knight. Now queen g7 gets played. Now, of course, he can win this and this, but he's not in a rush. He's like, I can put more pressure on my opponent. So basically, let's say if knight f7 is played, then there will be, so there can be some ideas of either rook f8 or there can be idea of this castle as well. Now, of course, the king side is extremely weak, but still, Jalaluddin is fighting, and if bishop f7 is played, then there can be idea of just king e7 defending this, and he's just fighting for another day. There can be at times, if the bishop goes back, then there can be ideas of, for example, bishop e8, and Firouzja is still better, but Jalaluddin can try to create some activity. So he's like, I'm not after that f7 pawn. For me, keeping the pressure is more important. So he plays g4. He's like, I want you to bring your knight back to h6, because in this position, if something like knight e7 is played, so now we can play knight f7, because if something like castle, then the knight is not on f5. So there will be bishop h6, and this is just lost. So then Jalaluddin plays the move knight h6. Knight is back to h6, and then in this position, Firouzja plays a brilliant move, that is knight e4, an extremely instructive move. So the point is, he either wants to get the knight on this outpost square, or he wants to get the knight on this outpost square. But then wait, yeah, that point we got, but knight e4. Wait, what is knight e4? What if the pawn gets captured? Pawn captures the knight. So Firouzja was not worried about it, because if this happens, then there is this move bishop takes h6. If queen takes h6, then there is bishop takes f7 check. The queen would go, and if queen g8. So now black wants to castle on the queen side. Firouzja can stop that from happening with queen h4. There can be queen f6 idea. There can be bishop g7 idea. And black's position is so restricted. Queen has, by the way, no square to go. Nowhere to go. Rook has nowhere to go. King also cannot go, nowhere to go. This is just a completely lost position for him. So much restriction because of the space advantage that Firouzja had, and then he brought the pieces there. How restricted position on the king side for Jalaluddin has become. So then he decides to play long castle. He's like, all right, that's enough. I want to get my king on the queen side. But now the problem is that Firouzja will win some material. So knight d6 check was played. And then in this position, he plays the move queen f4, attacking this and then forcing that knight to go there, and then queen takes f7. So point is that once the queens are exchanged, then there will be knight f7, and then the material will be lost. So this was played knight e7. Now, so the queens have been exchanged, and certain pieces on the king side have been exchanged as well. But that's fine, because Firouzja has gotten significant material advantage. And by the way, he still has space advantage on the king side. He still has double bishops. So bishop f7 was played, then h5. Of course, he's not going to repeat. Now he played bishop g5, then bishop f6 was played, then knight g6. He exchanged that, and then rook takes g6. So he's not going after this pawn and then giving up this pawn. He's like, all right, I'll just play f3. I'll defend my pawn. h6. Now, for the whole game, there was one piece of Firouzja that was not doing much, the a1 rook. So this time he decides to make use of that, rook a2. Because if knight a5, then there is rook a h2. This pawn would fall. and this is just too much for Jalaluddin to handle, and then he resigns. So an extremely instructive example of Firouzja of making use of the space advantage, bringing the pieces there, keeping opponent's position restricted, and then winning the game. Thanks everyone for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.